who's been with us this summer, visiting from the MIT Civic Media Group, Berkman, and working on Reddit. So we'll hand it over. We should aim for about a 40-minute talk, so plenty of time for questions at the end. All right,
Thanks, Tarleton. So here at the Social Media Collective, I've been spending the summer doing this research project, and this is my first opportunity to share my preliminary thoughts on this project. The first coming together of my research into something that I hope turns into a paper. So I'm excited to hear your feedback on any and all aspects of this as I think about how to put this project together. This July, moderators of many of Reddit's most popular discussion groups blacked out their subreddits, preventing access to parts of the site by Reddit subscribers and cutting off some of the company's advertising revenue for about half a day. What may not have started as a protest quickly became one, with many moderators complaining that the company needed to offer better communication and better tools to its volunteer moderators. Reddit's management responded within hours, apparently after substantive negotiations with its moderators, and promised to meet their demands. Many subreddits were back up in hours too, although others stayed private through the 4th of July weekend. And in fact, many moderators have put messages like this on their community sites, saying if the company doesn't meet our demands by the end of September, we're going to do this again. And this raises all sorts of questions. Was this a strike by unpaid digital laborers, like many journalists claim? I think there's also more going on. This is not a new pattern. If we go back 40 years to the community memory site, we've seen this recurring pattern of online systems where people share conversations, relationships, and identities, where a single entity hosts multiple conversations. They might be threads, they might be boards, they might be communities. You have the platform, you have the community, and you have these people in the middle, these people who fill in the cracks, who do all of the things that maybe the platform can't or the community demands. People who may deflect some of the ire away from platforms, but who are also supporting communities. And we see this pattern over and over again. It's the Well and their conference hosts of the 80s and 90s. It's Slashdot moderators, Wikipedia administrators, even Facebook group admins, or here at Microsoft, Xbox's Volunteer Enforcement United, who moderate conversations and gameplay on the Xbox system. And it's not just internet companies. Old media are also finding themselves in this position as they become more participatory, as Tarleton and others have pointed out in the world of online news. And research on the role of moderators had tended to focus either on their relationships to platforms, with that as kind of the center of the scholarship, or on their relationship to communities. I'll share some examples. So in some very important work in the early 2000s, Terra Nova was trying to make sense of the work that people are doing on platforms that they're passionate about, and wondering whether this is an example of online communities developing oppositions to capital and to corporations, or whether it's just a new kind of extracted labor through these online platforms. And she argues that it's kind of both. It's a way that these things come together in new configurations. And there's also a conversation around participatory culture. And Jenkins and co. focus on the more creative and liberatory possibilities of participatory culture, where fans of different films or different novels are organizing and creating their own media, and also opposing and resisting those brands, even as they are also consumers. And Postigo looks specifically at moderators in his 2 papers analyzing the work of volunteers on AOL. There were between 15 and 30,000 of these people who received credit from AOL on their internet bills for doing all of this community facilitation work. And Postigo recognizes how AOL needs these people to be doing work in order to maintain the scale of their platform. and looks at this moment where AOL starts to take greater control over their work, and describes that as this kind of organizational change that these volunteers develop kind of a work consciousness around, ultimately leading to a class action lawsuit and millions of dollars in unpaid wages for these people. And Postigo, like Terranova, is trying to make sense. Is this work? Is this volunteer? These people care about what they're doing in their communities, but they're also supporting this like large-scale corporate venture. And like centers on this idea of passionate labor, where people are really, they care about the things that they're doing online, but this moment where the organization changes, where the platform changes something, breaks the spell. They see themselves as altruistic, but they also see themselves as like getting credit from the company. And so there's this conversation of trying to make sense of moderators and volunteers' relationships to the platforms. And they acknowledge that the moderators have special powers and have a role to play in relation to a wider community. They're really focusing on that relationship. And there's a second conversation that looks at the relationship between active, powerful participants and the people they govern. Literature in peer production and literature in like computer-supported cooperative work, and those communities are interested in how people gain power and these questions of whether cooperation online is this example of utopian democratic ideals, or whether actually these peer production communities are like cultivating oligarchies. And so you have work by Shaw and Hill, for example, that looks across almost 700 wikis on Wikia and observes how what might start out as a set of like egalitarian affordances in a system over time evolves into more of an oligarchic structure. And it's an example of these scholars looking at this relationship between moderators and community. And in this talk, I want to look at how moderators kind of are between these two. Like they have a relationship to a platform, and a lot of what they do is shaped by that relationship. They're facing that company and talking in a certain way to them, and recognizing the value the company gets from them and having certain expectations from the company, while also facing their communities as representatives, leaders, maybe above their community or accountable to their community as the situation demands. And then secondly, I want to look at how solidarity is important among and between moderators as they face each other, deciding, is this person in or not? Do we trust this person? Am I in solidarity with moderators? Am I more associated with my community? How do I feel about the platform? So looking at that solidarity among moderators. And then finally, briefly looking at how the platform itself complicates these performances as its algorithms collapse who sees, who participates, and who does the work. So my site for this research is the social news site Reddit. How many of you are familiar with or have heard of Reddit? That's pretty much everyone, so I'll be super brief. It was founded in 2004 in an attempt to create a front page of the internet. It's a site with many sub-communities where people post links, people upvote them, downvote them. The site has about half the number of Twitter's monthly active visitors and about 2/5 the number of Wikipedia. It's, according to research by Pew a few years ago, it's mostly US, it's mostly male, but at that scale it also has a wide range of people around the world. There are around 550,000 subreddits, allegedly 9,000 of them highly active. It could be books, it could be suicide watch, where people offer feedback or conversation to those who are reporting thoughts of suicide. It could be freelancers for hire, or interesting conversations that are only really possible through the pseudonymity of the platform, like, am I the asshole? Where people post observations about their behavior and say, is this appropriate behavior or not? And people rate them on whether they're an asshole or not. Conversations that are made possible because of the pseudonymity on the site. And each of these communities has a moderation team. In fact, for the top 20,000 subreddits, there are over 50,000 moderator roles. And these people are founders, they're designers, they're facilitators. They recruit and promote their subreddits. They make and facilitate the lawmaking and enforcing those laws. And they're also responders. I had an interview where I was speaking to a subreddit moderator talking about back channel conversations with people who are reporting suicidal thoughts and the challenges they do off the Reddit to support those people. And compared to this is a list of all of the employees of Reddit. Compared to the size of Reddit, the company, these moderators vastly outnumber them. And Reddit itself as a company has a very, very small team compared to other companies with a comparable impact online. So in pursuit of this argument that I'm going to try to make, the evidence that I bring to bear is conversations I followed on Reddit, interviews that I've read with Reddit moderators, where they're interviewing each other. I've archived a lot of conversations and data from the moderator blackout in July. I've also downloaded data from the API on the number of moderators and networks of moderators. And I'm starting to conduct interviews with Reddit moderators as well. So I want to start with this relationship with the platform.